Welcome back to Hour 2 of our 2 hours together. A beautiful afternoon, still 81 degrees, and it's going to be nice all week, cool at night, and nice during the day, sunny, nice.
And it's going to get nicer during the day on Wednesday, because we're looking at a high right now, 68 degrees, which is the perfect temperature as far as I'm concerned. We could ride at 68 degrees as a high year round to be perfect by me.
Right, that's right. Sounds good. And if you want to say hello, or you have any questions or comments for guests, wdvrhost@comcast.net. And now we're going to speak with Bruce Whittemore, who I met at Riverfest.
Yes.
That's right. We spoke there, and we're going to talk about safe recovery. So good afternoon, and welcome to Let's Talk.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's a pleasure, and I appreciate your time. And it was great meeting you at Riverfest, where we had a tent there. So really excited to be here.
I remember that. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Connecticut.
Okay.
And I am the youngest of 6. I have 5 older sisters.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm the oldest of 4, and I have 3 younger sisters.
Oh, well, okay. I think mine was a little more challenging than yours.
No. Because I was the guy that could bring down all of the time. Bill said, and I'd be like, what?
That's true. Yeah, but stuff rolls downhill being the youngest.
That is true. Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
And I'm the third of 6 with 2 sisters, both younger.
Oh, well,
And
okay.
4
Yeah, we all
boys.
got big families.
Yes. Okay. And so how did you come about getting into safe recovery?
Well, that's a long story. We don't have all the time, but I'll try to keep it really short.
Right.
So, growing up in a big family in, Connecticut, what kind of was a party atmosphere, right? Yeah. So definitely grew up, a lot of drinking, alcohol, and we were in an upper middle class neighborhood. So, life was pretty good, except that there was a lot of drinking. My mother was a very highly functioning, as we would call, alcoholic. I don't like labels, and we'll talk about that hopefully a little bit more, but I don't like the idea of alcoholic. Anyway, over the years, my mom died when I was 18, okay? So there was a lot of things happening in the household that, you're not necessarily regulating to, or that you're working with, some trauma and other things. And I was a partier. I was out there going crazy and having a good time. And then eventually I did start going to college, but I never actually went to classes. I barely got out of high school because I was out partying all the time. And what eventually happened was that in time I did get married because I wanted to have a good life. I wanted kids. I wanted all those things. But, the idea of going out and drinking and partying was something that was just ingrained in me growing
More
up.
compelling.
Oh, absolutely more compelling. Yeah. The problem was eventually I was still having fun, but the people around me were not having fun. And that's the way I like to think about it. So got into recovery, went to rehab for 30 days up in Connecticut, and spent 30 years in the rooms of, traditional 12-step recovery. And what happened was, and did all the work, I sponsored people, I mentored people, and really it changed my life. It saved my life. And the rooms of 12 steps they're not for everybody.
Right.
A lot of people have a tough time with them for various reasons, but they're a great network of people to connect with and to be able to talk with about recovery, right? So I created meetings, I did all kinds of things in those rooms, and what happened was, there was always something missing for me in the rooms and the 12 steps. There was always a piece that was missing. I wasn't sure what it was. It taught me a lot. There's a lot of wisdom in those rooms, and I'll forever be grateful for that. What happened eventually is I ended up getting divorced, and I started drinking again when I started dating, right? And there's a big stigma about drinking again. Like, it's always about abstinence in the rooms. And I get it. Some people just can't drink again, or at least that's the belief. And I was going to meetings still. I was actually running a meeting, but I wasn't being honest with myself, or I wasn't being honest with the people around me. And what I decided was I needed to come back and be honest, which I did, but I didn't want to shame myself, right? There was a lot of shame about going back out and drinking again or drugging again, and there's a lot of shame around that, not only in the rooms, because very strict around abstinence, but also in culture, as a whole, and just the stigma around alcohol and addiction and all of that.
Right.
So I had to think about what that meant for me. Like, what did it mean to pick up a drink again and drink again? And nothing terrible happened during that. It was about a year and a half. So I had, at that point, 24 years of abstinence, right? And recovery, and what we call sobriety. And I reframe all those things a little bit differently than how we look at them today, or how 12 Steps look at them. So that's when Safe Recovery was born. And it actually got, again, it was that thing that was missing that I needed. There was something that was missing. And there were two pieces to that were missing. One was this idea of, we know there's a lot of healing that happens with somatic things now, breath work and, meditation and movement. Well, that was the piece that was missing in those rooms. And there's a lot of trauma. People are in those rooms for obviously reasons. And a lot of that is trauma related. So I had a dream one night, and actually this kind of got downloaded to me, believe it or not, through this dream. And I swear to God, I woke up and I just started writing just all of this stuff about reframing recovery. And that's how Safe Recovery was born. It's the practice of reframing recovery. It's looking at it in a different way.
Right.
So that's how it started.
Okay.
And then I started working with various aspects of not only what I learned in the rooms of 12 Steps and recovery, but also what I know about neuroscience today, what I know about, I do something called tapping or EFT, which is a somatic way to regulate, and that's one of my main modalities. Okay. And I also, part of the philosophy of Safe Recovery is around taking the shame out of addiction. Okay. And I can get in more of that. So that's kind of how it all started. And that's where we are today.
Wow.
It's interesting because I may appear to come at you in a challenging way, and I'm not, because I want to explore this more. No, I say that because I have friends who are.
Please.
I have friends who I have friends who died from substance abuse.
Absolutely.
I have friends who struggled for many, many years with substance abuse. Yes. I know some people now who struggle with substance abuse.
Yes.
And I know that while the 12-step program can be tremendously beneficial to a lot of people, I am fully aware that it is not 100% success rate. That like half of the people, I believe, if my memory's right, roughly half.
30%.
30, was it 30?
And that's hard to really quantify, but that's what some of the statistics say.
So that it's like I'm open to the idea because I realize the seriousness of the need. And I'm aware of the pain that it causes the people that they're around as well.
Yes.
So that it's, what I'm curious about is you were talking about what's missing and creating an alternative path, if you will. In my mind, this is what I'm hearing. It's an alternative.
Complementary, but yes.
So What is different? We all know that in 12 Steps, we all roughly know that people have to get, but fundamentally, it's people getting in a room and admitting they have a problem.
Absolutely.
And saying, hey, I have a problem. And other people saying, we're here to help you with that problem. Yep. We're all here as a support group and a network of people. We've got the same problem. we're all here for you on that. What is it? Why did you feel like that piece was missing? And how does that piece that you've added, that you've incorporated into your method?
Yes. So let me pre-frame this a little bit also. So I'm a holistic recovery coach. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist.
Gotcha.
So I want to make sure that I put that out there. And this is a philosophy that comes from a lot of new neuroscience, particularly some well-known people that are out on the fringes today and that I follow. And one of them is around this idea of disease, that like addiction is a disease or alcoholic's a disease. Now, if that works for people, that's great. This is not about taking any of that away from them. This is about expanding the possibilities of looking at it differently. And there's a lot of research now about addiction, and I call it an adaption instead. Instead of addiction, I call it an adaption. And the adaption comes from the pain and trauma that people have gone through, or the lack of love potentially that wasn't there growing up. It's attachment theory, so there's a lot of information out there about attachment theory too today. And calling it an adaption. And when I work with people today about calling it an adaption, meaning that it's a survival system. So it's a paradigm shift in how we see it. It's not that, it's a disease and I can never change it and it's like locked in and this is a label who I am for life. We know about neuroplasticity today. Like we can change the brains, we can change the neural pathways. We can regulate our system, the vagus nerve, which is well known today as far as regulating. And when I talk to people about this, instead of labeling it an addiction, so just think about it. Just sit for a minute with the word addiction. What comes up, right? For your viewers, I'm thinking it's like stigma, shame, lots of things. But when we call it an adaptation, meaning that our biology has created these parts, and I do what's called parts work, which comes from internal family systems, or IFS. We've created these parts as protectors. And drinking, drugging, there's a spectrum of this adaptation from looking at our phones all the way to, the worst harms we can do to ourselves, right? Shame perpetuates that. So when we think of the fact that it's biology, it's the biology, it's a biological imperative about survival, and that our system creates these, it's kind of like the tiger in the bushes, like always being on alert for what's coming up. There's a quote that I love, and this is the practice, and it was actually up in our booth in the Safe Recovery booth at Riverfest. And it's, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. And that's a semi-quote from Carl Jung, the famous psychologist.
I was going to say, it sounds like a lot like Jung.
Exactly, you got it.
I was going to say, it sounds a lot like Jung. Yeah.
And I love that quote because 80% of what happens is unconscious, right? There's only maybe even more, maybe close to 90%, and 10% of what we work with is conscious. So all of the things that we've gone through from the time we've been conceived, not even born, we're in utero, we're in the belly of our moms. There's, and I won't swear because I know I'm not supposed to swear. There's stuff going on that is impacting that baby, right? Yeah. And it happens everywhere. So that's to normalize this is what safe recovery is about. What
you're saying is, and I'm struggling here because there's a doctor whose name I cannot remember at the moment, but his argument is that a lot of who we are and a lot of the things that we experience are the results of the way we have responded or adapted to trauma in the past.
Gabor Mate.
That's him. Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
He is honestly one of, I don't have many heroes in life, but he's one of the people
he's phenomenal. For people
the way
who are
he
listening,
talks about it,
for people who are not familiar with him, tell people just a really, really short clip about him so they can go look him up.
So Gabor was a doctor in Canada, in Vancouver, and he was in one of the probably most densely populated addictive environments.
Yes.
And he would walk the streets and they would say, "Hey, doc, what's happening? How you doing?" And he worked with people on the streets for 10, 15 years. And with the hardest of the, addicted people out there. And he learned a lot from that. He was also a pediatrician. He's done a lot of things.
Yes.
And he wrote a book 15 years ago about ADHD, which I'm reading again. He was ahead of his time.
Oh, he's way ahead of his time.
And when I was listening to his book on tape one day, and I was upstairs painting, and my wife was downstairs painting, and we were listening to loud. And he said something, and I'm like, yes, that is what I'm talking about. That is where we need to look at this differently, because I was in the process of developing safe recovery. And I'm like, we need, and he just validated everything for me.
Yeah.
So he's one of my heroes in that case. Richard Schwartz, who does IFS and parts work, is what I also brought together with Gabber's work, plus my knowledge of 12-step work. I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Oh,
There's a lot of wisdom there.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a ton of wisdom there. And the community is incredible. So I always encourage people that I work with to go to meetings, even though they can be very, in some places, constrictive, and it's all about abstinence, and there can be some shame around that. But I still encourage them because it's important to connect with people.
Well, it's really funny. Quick side story.
Yeah.
I had a really good friend of mine who had serious drinking problem, who lots of bad things happened to him, and he got it under control.
Sure.
He used to go to meetings sometimes 5 times a week, and he and I were talking, and we would go do things together, and he was talking to me. He said, "You know why?" I said, "Why do you go so much? Why do you go so many times a week? I'm just kind of curious." And he goes, "Well, when you really think about it, it makes sense." And this goes to your point. He said, "All of the people that are in the meetings were all of the same people that were in the bars in all the places that I went to go to drink. But now I don't have to drink to be with those people."
Right.
Yeah, there's some crazy people in those rooms.
So he said, so that I'm there. He said, and so he had this network. He had a social connection. He had a network connection with people, and it wasn't about. It wasn't for him. It was because we talked about this quite a bit. It wasn't about shame, and it wasn't about guilt or anything. But it was like, I need these people. These people were my adaptation, if you will, in your language.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
These are the people I need. So now I go because I know where I can find them. Right. And I won't get myself in trouble.
And I have great friends that I've known for 30 years through those rooms. People that I love. I was actually online with them, Zooming. We're all over the country now, and we were Zooming and talking, and we talk about recovery. And we don't agree on everything, right? I don't agree with the disease model of addiction. I see it as an adaptation now, and that's okay. A lot of people are coming around to this idea of adaptation because one of the things about labeling is that it takes the agency away from us, right? As humans, like when we get labeled something, it's like, this is who I am. Well, no, that's not who you are. That's who you are is I like to call spiritual being underneath all of that, that is in a human body that can expand, and there's possibility versus this when you don't work with things that are traumatic, when you don't work with the fears and the phobias and the limiting beliefs, life becomes very constricted. And and I talk to clients about this, or the people that I work with, and I think of it as like, as you get older, they get more and more constricted, and now you're looking through this lens, which is very narrow, right? Very narrow lens, versus opening it up to possibility. Like I call it the field of possibility, right? That it's possible once you start working with those things. The important piece, there's another important piece there that I need to talk about, and that's the somatic aspect. So one of the things I do, and this is becoming part of also the normalized world, and a lot of therapists do this now, counseling, is tapping. And that's tapping on meridian points, okay? Which I did before I came in here because I was nervous, right?
Right.
And tapping, there's different meridian points, and that started about 25 years ago with a guy named Gary Craig, and it's become very normalized and much more in the culture now. and it helps people to regulate. And what we're doing is basically helping people to regulate and get to a place where they are at a calm state, right? And they start seeing things differently when they're in that place versus the fight, flight, or freeze response. When you're in fight, flight, or freeze, you're still in that state of dysregulation. We call it being outside the window of tolerance, right? Mm-hmm. And we want to get people in flow, and that's when the transformation happens, when you're in that flow. And tapping is the regulating state to get you there. And then it's amazing to watch when I work with clients. They start seeing things differently. Creativity comes back online. They're more connected to themselves. They have more courage to do things. But it's something that they can do for themselves, which I love, the fact that tapping is it's in your hands, right? And it's tapping on meridian points. And then EFT, which includes tapping, emotional freedom techniques. There's a bunch of techniques that I use that basically help to tune in to and create awareness around what's happening.
Right. Okay. You're listening to Let's Talk. If you have any questions or comments, WDVR host at Comcast.net. Tell us about where the website, how people can find about Safe Recovery.
Sure. It's the SafeRecoveryPractice.com.
Right.
And I work with people online and do tapping with them online and work with them and coach with them online and do workshops. I do something called the Foundational Immersion Program, which is a 30-day. It's kind of like, rehab online, but you can do it from your home. And I teach them the philosophy. I teach them how to tap, and they can bring that with them wherever they go.
Right. And because you're online, you can also, you don't need to be in a certain area where you work. Do you work
I work with people all over the country and actually all over the world. So
okay. And how many people are with you at Safe Recovery? Are there others that work with you, or?
It's primarily myself and my partner right now.
Okay.
And, call her my wife.
Okay.
and then we have obviously support from computers. So we're looking to expand. I'm looking actually for an intern, someone that is interested in recovery, that might be going down the path, that is in recovery, that might be interested in working with us.
Right.
Get on social media. I have a big vision for this because the only alternative is 12 steps, and that's not a bad alternative.
It's not a bad alternative, but there needs to be other alternatives.
There needs to be others.
In the spirit of exactly what you're talking about, we need to stop keeping that window so tight and so close. I firmly believe, in my own experience, need to have a big, much wider vision and openness to other possibilities of things that work.
Absolutely.
That things that literally save people.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's a saying in the rooms, actually, it's like there's a nut for every screw or something like that, or a screw for every nut. Right. I don't forget how it says, but it's right. There's a lot of alternatives.
Yeah.
My vision is to create something that's sustainable for people that can't afford it. I'm looking to create a nonprofit eventually. I'd love help with that so that I can expand this practice further. So,
Okay. And so the website, once again,
the SafeRecoveryPractice.com.
And all this information will be on Let's Talk WDVR Facebook page later on. Let's see. So do you take people who have you worked with, like hospitals, doctors? Can they refer people to you? Can you do things like that too?
I've had people referred to me, absolutely. And I don't work. I mean, I've done a speech up at Centenary University, and they have guest speakers in. It's a speech called "The Addiction to Adaption."
Okay.
So I would love to do more of this, to get this idea, this philosophy out there. I'd love to go into rehabs and have this, then discuss addiction to adaption, what that looks like. The somatic tool of EFT, which is an amazing tool, and you have it in your hands, literally.
Right.
And if teaching people how to use it for themselves, it helps with phobias, it helps with, what we call anxiety, which I just see as fear, right? The bottom line, and we work with that. It helps with limiting beliefs and like who am I? I'm this piece of crap that's an addict. Well, no, you're not.
Right.
You're a person that has adapted because of what's happened to you. That's not who you are. And that's
It's a
where
piece
hope
of who
comes
you
in.
are. That is a piece of who they are.
It's a part of them.
It's a part of them.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a part of them.
And the substance or behavior that is the addiction is what we call the firefighter. It comes in thinking that it's going to make everything better, but it makes everything worse. Right? But to get to know that part of you, to get to understand it, to get curious about it, like why is it there? When was it born?
Right.
That's where the real work, and that's when you can start reframing and seeing yourself differently. Like, this is not who I am. So that's where the labeling comes in, that I'm not an addict. I had this adaptation.
Right.
The last thing is, if anybody can go and look up the study, ACEs, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the study, which is called Adverse Childhood Experiences, or ACEs, ACES. It was done by Kaiser Permanente in the 1980s. 17,000 people were in this study. It was a big study, and it's still being monitored today. And what they found was that those people that had traumatic backgrounds there's a test you can take, like 20 questions about, like, did you have abuse in your family, one of your parents in jail, questions like that. I don't think it's extensive enough, but it's pretty spot on. What they found is that those people that had that in their family, if you had 4 of those things, that there's almost a 1,200% chance that you're going to be addicted to something. 1,200% from a normal population. That's incredible.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So think about all the people incarcerated, right? So I work with some incarcerated people as well.
Right.
Because we need to have some compassion. We need to look at each other with more compassion these days than we ever had before.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is really the basis and the philosophy of safe recovery is awareness, embodiment, curiosity, and compassion.
Okay, thank you very much, Bruce Whittemore. All this information will be on the Let's Talk WDVR Facebook page later on. And well, we hope to speak with you again maybe sometime down the road.
Thank
See
you.
how things are going. Great to talk with you.